Hey everybody, welcome to another CodePen Radio, where we talk about CodePen mostly. Big surprise here, but this is kind of an interesting episode that I have a guest out there from the world, a guest I've never even met. It just emailed me. Usually this doesn't work out super well, but I'm extremely intrigued by the man and the app and the journey and everything. And it's generally going to be a show about AI and producing websites with AI, something that I should say right up front, if you go to CodePen right this minute, we really don't have any help for it. But we're seeing a lot of it on CodePen because, of course, with all this, people are piecing tools together and making tools work for them. So we see plenty of AI usage on CodePen in that way. But like, what if, like, what's in store for us, and what are different tools that people might use? So my guest is Jacob Miller. Hi, Jacob.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. Thank you, Chris, for letting me jump in on this one. Excited to talk about all things AI and tools.
I'm just unabashedly a little excited about the possibilities these days, especially because it's like, whoa, it's coming at you fast. You know,
God, the industry moves so fast right now. I feel like every single week there is something new that you have to jump into immediately.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's like behooves our kind of our mental state if we preserve some excitement over it, because it can feel awfully scary too, and a little left behindy. And I think we're seeing that, you know, perhaps nationwide, with people being like, get your data center off of my backyard kind of stuff, which, you know, you do kind of understand, and you'd wonder how much of it comes from like, I don't understand this, I don't like it. All this, but a little bit different story when you're like in tech and you're talking to other people in tech too. It has a little bit of a different tone to it, especially those of us who are seeing like, wow, this is cool. Yeah, look at the incredible work being produced. I should say, when you go to, you're working on an app. I'm just going to spill the beans on the thing that you're working on, which is Diff UI.ai is the URL to it. What's the official full name of the app?
Yeah, Diff UI is what I've been working on.
Diff UI.
It is essentially a very different take on doing prompt to website. I think a lot of the issues that are out there today is you have things like Claude Design or Lovable or all these other site builders that are out there, and they leverage large language models to basically build a site for you. But the issue with that I usually find, and I feel like CodePen did this really well, is a lot of these apps don't let you play and explore up in the front, and they just go immediately to building something. It's like hiring somebody to build your house without having an architectural plan first. You're just going straight into it, and then you're like, well,
that wasn't
really what I
can
wanted.
see that metaphor being strong, because it's like, okay, here's your house, and then what they're kind of asking for you is like to be like, actually, could you, you know, I actually really like having a big bathroom, so rebuild the entire house but make the bathroom bigger, rather than like a little bit. I mean, it changes a little bit. I'm sure you've seen the like grill me skills and stuff like that are trying to like get a more robust plan before the ultimate building, but like that's an example of this stuff moving really fast. Is everybody doing that? Certainly not. You know?
No. I would say that, at least for the diffusion side, I'm one of the first ones that's actually doing that. And to your point around like the grill me type skills that are out there, I think one of the things that they miss is the visualization of it. Because when you're talking with an architect to build that house, sticking with that analogy, you're not like having that architect describe to you how the bathroom would look or describe to you how the living room would look. They're bringing you actual drawings of this, renderings.
Let me see it. I want to react to visuals. This is a good point, because you come from the world of design. You were at Figma before this. This is, in fact, part of your story is that you see so much potential here that you left Figma on with risk, right? That you're like, this is actually really cool, and I want to take a stab at it. So, but all that to say that you really understand and come from literally design.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in design now for 20 years, and prior to even Figma, I was building design tools over at Atlassian, just internal tools for the designers. When I moved over to Figma, one of the things that I really saw was that with this emergence of AI, there was a lot of confusion amongst designers around like, hey, are we getting like left behind because we don't have a platform that is native to us? And so what I'm seeing a lot of designers do now is they're actually switching into code, which is the age-old debate of, hey, should designers code? But I think while there is that element that allows you to explore in code, I think one of the issues with it is a lot of times it's in the details rather than the larger grand vision. So that's really why I took a risk on this. I saw that diffusion models were getting better over time, but in an interesting way, they actually plateaued for a really, really large portion, which is why I think a lot of us wrote them off early on. And what I was seeing is that they were approaching this point where past this point, they'd actually be viable for doing UI design. And they're just more creative and rich and exploratory. So I thought, hey, why not? Let's see if
that
this
is a bit
actually
of a
something
gamble.
cool.
I think that's interesting. Let's pause for 1 second and be like, I think people like LLM is thrown a lot, and people understand the word LLM, that it means large language model, and that it means, like, I don't know, every chatbot you ever talk to, you type some text, you get some text. With the caveat that, we know there's multimodal things, and sometimes you say, draw me an image of a cow jumping over the moon, you're going to get that as an image, and that kind of muddies the water a little bit. But kind of before that, I guess, I think there was this moment where, like, okay, that's an LLM, and that's different than a diffusion model. You've been using that word, but we early days, we were aware of them too. I remember Midjourney was really popular. That was like the one that you logged in and used through Discord. Maybe there's other ways to use it, but everybody was in the Discord and they were just typing stuff out because it was just incredible to see it. It had this like artistic bend to it, that the things that it produced, it almost didn't produce any junk. It almost like ignore you for the sake of quality, because everything that came out of it was like, dang, that's nice. Even if it's not exactly what I wanted, at least you could admit that it was well done. Right. And then there was like because this really does feel magical. I'm sure it's mostly magical to most people still, including me. But the first time I ever had any understanding of how any of this works was through the diffusion thing, like what you're using now, because it was like, okay, imagine it's looked at 20 billion zillion bagillion images, and it had metadata about those, so it knew what those images were about. And there's like some sliver of them that looked like frogs. So now for some reason it like basically understands frog-like shapes or something. And then imagine this, it starts with literally TV static looking noise, totally randomly generated, and then it does a pass, but with the prompt, and the prompt says, like, I need a picture of 30 frogs all jumping around. Well, it knows the path for frogs. It's seen a lot of frogs, so it makes it a little more frog-like. Then it makes it a little more frog-like and a little more frog-like, and eventually the noise turns into literally these 30 frogs jumping around or whatever. 30 is terrible. You're never going to get exactly 30. These things are too stupid for that. But like, I can wrap my mind around that. I can wrap my mind around noise getting slowly turned into frogs or whatever. And that is that still true? That's what diffusion still is, essentially, is these kind of like noise to imagery.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I think you really described it perfectly with Midjourney. Midjourney, it was something that I think we all saw really early on, and we were able to visualize it. We were able to understand it at just a glance. Just like, oh, that was AI generated. It did something crazy that was so unexpected and new and unique. Yeah. One of the things that I find with large language models, and like the difference between these two models, is oftentimes large language models are trained for consistency. And that makes total sense when you are writing a billing function. They're fantastic for that, because you want consistent code on the back end.
Yeah, like, don't get too creative here. Jeez,
right,
it's billing
exactly.
Code, yeah.
Like they're trying to lock that down. The issue is that when you're trying to get them to do designs, they are expressing designs through code. And thus they are creating consistent code to represent those designs. So you get this convergence of design look. That's why we had that purple grading era for such a long time. That's why you use Claude Design. It kind of gravitates
we're barely out of
that
it.
Page. Totally,
Purple gradients just turned into one italic word in the header or whatever. And to me, now playing with this more myself, I kind of get where that comes from. I mean, I have no doubt that there is built-in system prompt stuff in each one of these LLMs that have some rules in it that's like, here, these 10 Google fonts, they're pretty good. You should probably use those, Maybe don't use a white background, do a little subhead thing in all caps, That's written into some prompt somewhere. And I don't blame them, because the results are actually okay. I mean, maybe, Jacob Miller would say these designs are crap. They are and they aren't to me. Like there's some apps that I use. So apologize for the divergence a little bit, but my kids in school, we use this app called what is it? Sign Up Genius, right? To like sign up for like I'm gonna be the math helper this week, so I'm gonna sign up. I would pay Sign Up Genius. Could you please just type Claude Designify my app? It would be like 5 times better than the garbage you have here. Not to be too jerky about it, but it doesn't look good. I know that they're successful. The UX is fine, whatever. It's a successful app, but you're like way below the bar of just Johnny Nobody typing in design me a sign up website. So the AI is lifting the bar on what like should be there, but the bar is very average. It's very samey. You're not going to stand out. It's like the same crap we used to bitch about with every site looks like Bootstrap. It's that same kind of thing. And that, so the bar is up, but the bar is boring.
Yeah, but I think that the great thing about things like Claude Design is sometimes consistency is a good thing. Where for these apps, you mentioned this like lower kind of like watermark. I think that they get you above that by creating a really consistent experience that is expected and at least is harmonious within the look and feel that they've been trained for. There's nothing wrong with that. But the issue is that I think right now, there's so much noise online. There's so many things that are out there. There's so many new releases that are happening that you need to have a way to differentiate yourself visually to get that early traction. You need that wow moment for individuals. Now, for an app that your kids are using for school or something, that distribution method is completely different, where it's just like, no, we're using this because, the entire school is using this.
Sure, it probably should be like pretty polished and nice, but it's more like a marketing game and stuff. They're not trying to necessarily stand out for the juiciest UI in the world. Yeah. Yeah,
nor is like Jira trying to like go wild and be creative or something. It's like, no, this is for task management. And that's entirely okay to have that kind of LLM-based design for that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're not going to get the really standout stuff. So how do you get it? Maybe one thing is like just more extravagant prompting. Like maybe it is capable of more fancy design if I write it a book for what I want. But maybe that's too onerous. I can kind of see where Diff UI is coming. I mean, you have this blog post. You must have been on Hacker News at one point. So you sent me this blog post that says like show Hacker News. I think isn't that some like genre of thing? I'm not like a Hacker News guy, but I feel like I've seen that before. Show Hacker News. Here's the URL, and then it has like a very digestible explanation of what your app is. Your version of that is very nice. It's very cool. It explains who you are, explains on what the bet you're trying to make is, but more importantly, it has some examples of websites that were produced in this tool that are like, that does not look like AI slop in any way. That looks like sick design, and I think that's going to catch people's eye because, of course, that's what they want. I want amazing design. So how are you getting there without having to write a book?
Well, I mean,
that's the case.
The cool thing about this is that I'm using my tool to design my tool. And I feel like that was a really big, important moment for Figma as well. I remember like early days Figma people saying, hey, there was a really strong moment when we knew this was going to work, when we started using Figma to design Figma. And in the same, way, cool. I think early on in the history of Diff UI, I started using the tool to design the tool. And the purpose of that was twofold. Number one was I wanted to make sure that it looked differentiated from other design that was out there. But number two was if it didn't work for what I was doing, then this bet wasn't viable. And so that it played out. Like you said it yourself. You're very kind, by the way. Thank you for that. But the UI does not look like something that comes out of Claude or GPT-5.
Yeah, you're in a unique world here, and that if you made a design tool, even if it had the same exact amazing output that it does now, but the tool itself looked kind of dumpy, you wouldn't get a single customer. Are you kidding me? My God.
No, exactly. Your trust immediately evaporates.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's still a productivity tool. And so it's still kind of constrained a little bit. It's not going to the absolute edges of this. The thing that I've really been interested in is actually taking UIs beyond what just a productivity app needs, but going into things like game design or going into landing pages that just like blow you out of the water, where you're just like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
Right. One of them in this blog post is like tarot based, you know, it has some really cool interactions, but it's like, I could imagine typing in and be like, hey, I have this, you know, this, I don't know, maybe it literally is an app for telling your fortune. I don't know what it is, but that's the look that you're going for, even if it's for something completely different. What a unique, interesting take on it. That's really going to capture people's attention. It's going to do good in a design meeting. It feels expensive, which is something my Shop Talk co-host Dave would say during meetings. Like, that's how they survived as a company. Sometimes when they would show off a design and it looked expensive, that was good for their business. I would say the designs you're showing here kind of look expensive.
Well, one of the fun things with that tarot one is if you actually look at this, and obviously it's hard for people on the podcast to like listen in and check this out, but I'll describe what's going on with it, which is you're drawing a card and you're actually seeing some lighting effects on the card as you move the card around. There's depth effects on it.
Oh yeah, CodePen people know. This is the kind of stuff you see on CodePen.
Yeah, exactly. So what I was literally doing was I was looking through a bunch of examples on CodePen when I was looking to create this, and I was like, I want an example that diffusion will make better. And one of the cool things with diffusion is you can create more than just UI designs. You can create assets for the stuff that you're making. And so for this, I not only created the card designs using Diff UI, but I also created the normal maps, the depth maps, the roughness maps, so these things can actually be dynamically lit. And then I plugged that in to an example that I saw on CodePen of just, I think it was like a Pokemon card one where they were showing around like a shimmer of it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I feel like that's what takes this this tarot thing to the next level. And I get that it's hard to listen to on audio, but it's one thing to have a flat card, like you bought a baseball card and lights reflecting off of it, or reflects a kind of very uniformly. Like, it doesn't matter if the baseball card has an elephant on it or a pitcher. The light's going to kind of reflect in the same way. That is not what's going on here. It's almost like the card has a little embossing on it and the light hits them a little differently. So you're saying, yeah, that was programmatically done too, or maybe programmatically is the wrong word, but diffusion helped with that, producing those things, because light has to bounce off each of those cards slightly differently. I mean, that's a touch that, talk about feeling expensive. That's way up there.
It changes the visual of it, and you immediately see something that looks different, and so you want to hang on it a little bit longer. And I think
about diffusion as it's flat. You get a JPEG out of it. How do you then get that interactivity and stuff? That's like a missing point here. And I do think you explain it in the app somewhere, but it's worth talking about here. Is it kind of like you get a package together that you do eventually give to an LLM? Right?
Yeah, so essentially what you do is when you have your initial designs inside of Diff UI, what you do at that point is you select all the designs. You're like, these are the ones that I want. And you right-click in the app and you say copy for agent. What that does is it creates a build plan for you that you can then hand off to an LLM. LLMs are fantastic at converting images into code. And using Diff UI as a starting point to explore the visual and then finishing with the LLM to convert it ends up being a handoff process that I think works really, really well. You're using the best model for the stage that you're working at any given time. But the other thing is that you're providing, with that build step, you're providing the LLM a set of APIs that it can call to create these things like depth maps or normal maps or roughness maps. You can do these cool lighting effects, as well as you're providing a bunch of other APIs that can call diffusion models for. For example, one of the issues that Claude Design has is it doesn't actually render things like avatars or hero images. Well, by using a platform like this that has a bunch of diffusion models natively, during that build process, your LLM can decide, well, I'm going to render an image for this. I'm going to render an image for this. I'm going to create an icon for this. And so you're using the harmoniousness of these models to create something that is better than the sum of the parts.
Yeah. Very interesting take on all this. So I think people get the point now. Like you're doing some prompting, you're going back and forth with this model. The end result is this package, for lack of a better word, of a bunch of assets and information that an LLM can then take and make into a website. There's probably some back and forth that happens then too, but I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty compelling, right? I have some questions about though. Like, so I mentioned writing a book though, like just being that like, man, if I'm going to get these kind of results, I better be really specific what I'm asking for, not as required when you have these amazing assets that you're handing the LLM. Like you said, they're really good at that part. So now you already have these good assets. There's less I have to write because part of the prompting is the beautiful images. But from your side, how am I getting those beautiful images? Is the value in Diff UI some of your experience as a designer? Presumably you have very cool, interesting proprietary system prompts that are helping get these kind of good results. Is that kind of what I'm paying for as like Jacob's?
You'd be surprised on that. It's actually not the case that it's like, proprietary or anything. A lot of the images right now for the designs are being served with GPT Image 2, which is OpenAI's model. I had my own image model trained for a long time that I was using as a starting point, but theirs is better, and I want to use the best one that'll provide the best experience for my users. I'm
curious about that too when I'm in here, though. Oh, actually, you finish your thought because I have a follow-up on that model question.
I think the more important thing is it goes back to what you said about Midjourney early on when we were talking, which is sometimes Midjourney ignores a little bit of the prompt in order to return something that was unexpectedly magical. One of the things that I try and do whenever you generate something is provide you multiple options. And with the subsequent options, I'll increase the temperature a little bit. So the first one will try and respond to your prompt as closely as possible. The next one will diverge a little bit, the next one will diverge a little bit more, and the last one will diverge even more. The reason for that is diffusion is actually really cheap to do, and it's really fast to do. So you can actually get multiple of these designs all at once. And
I would have thought it would have been expensive and slow, and you're saying it's cheap and fast.
I think like end-to-end for a design is like 90 seconds right now. Whereas I think for like Claude Design, if you're like prompting in, it'll take 10, 15 minutes to create something. And so you can move at a much faster speed to explore. And so that is the magic. It's saying, hey, let's not have any cool like secret sauce under the hood. The secret sauce is just providing more optionality for the user so they can drill into the things that they really love.
Yeah. Very cool. So it's less behind the scenes stuff. It's kind of like picking a good model. Do you expose that? I'm very curious about that. I think early day, or I mean, I don't know. At some point there was some era that was like, and it's still the case if you're like using Cursor or something. Sure, you can leave it on auto. Some developers are really picky about what model they're picking and when. They like lots of options. They have opinions about which ones they're picking and why and stuff like that. Are you going to go down that road, or are you kind of keeping it more abstract? Be like, no, I got you. I'll make sure you're using the right model for the job here.
Yeah, I think what I found is that sites like this, where you're visually exploring, end up attracting a much wider breadth of audience than just people that are purely technical. And so because of that, I want to automatically choose whatever the best model is. So I actually have a few different models that render these UIs, but it's weighted by the ELO score of the model. And so every time a image is like, no, that's the correct one that I want, this is the one that I'm picking, it increases the score for that model, and it automatically weights them over time and gravitates towards the best model.
Well, that's neat. What a good idea. See, there's fancy stuff you're doing in there. Jeez. Yeah,
create a good experience.
Have the ideas though. I like that though, that it's it's humans plus AI, because you're saying I think you even said as little as 0.1% of the code base was written by you. You're also using AI to make this app, which is it's just cool to be honest about and all that. But it's your ideas too. I mean, I think of all the innovation that happened at Figma. Sometimes I think that's a little at odds with AI. They're like, I think we can make a canvas renderer, an infinite canvas, infinitely zoomable thing. I'm like, I don't think AI is like coming up with that. Like I think sometimes innovation needs to be like from a human brain.
Exactly. I think humans come up with that innovative side, and they can, regardless of what tools they're using, they'll execute on it. It's been a really interesting change, though, for me going to handwriting every single line of my previous app, which was like a Reddit meets Patreon competitor. And, I literally didn't want to use React for the front end because I wanted to hand tailor every line of JavaScript for that. To pivoting to this, where I'm literally being like, no, I'm not going to even look at the code base anymore. It's been such a paradigm shift, but it's also freeing in a really interesting way.
I mean, is it the obvious stuff too, though? Is it like I couldn't move this fast if I had to write it all by hand?
It absolutely is. I mean, I'm a solo founder right now. in that
Right.
lens, like, with my previous work, it took me 6 years to build that app. This I've been working on for 6 months. So it is truly, a 10, 20x increase in your velocity. It's wild.
Right on. And you're gonna face all the same challenges that every startup has chased for time. Like you need customers and you need marketing and you need all this stuff and you need a good product and stuff. And you're solo. You're gonna have all those challenges too. But you're kind of fighting against. I mean, not to be too personal, I guess, but you're fighting against this idea that like this thing better better be proprietary in some way. Better do some stuff. Because what it's saying is prompt to website, and you're fighting against every other thing that wants to be able to do that. I mean, certainly Claude Design wants to be as good as you are about this too, But I guess the bet is that you're kind of going down a different path that they might not be as willing to go down.
Totally, and that's why I think you have to optimize for that wow moment as quickly as possible in that journey. Like I'll share some like under the hood stats that I have for the platform. One of the things that I found is if a user creates 2 designs, just 2, they are 15% of the time they will convert to actually buying credits on the account. And I think
interesting, a little usage that maps to about CodePen too. Like if you don't do much, you're lost to the thing.
Totally.
But the more you do, the higher chance you have of converting.
But I was surprised it was only 2 designs was that limit.
Yeah.
Meaning
Right,
they
that is
did
pretty
2
low.
prompts and they were like, no, I am sold and I am bought in. And so what I've really been trying to do is how do I get people to that second prompt? That's the biggest thing more than anything else. Because I think as soon as you see the results, you instantly are like, oh, I see the value here. And so that's the traction issue that I'm facing from like a business owner standpoint is how do I get people to that level? How do I get them using it?
Yeah,
And
trying it is hard enough, and trying it twice is even
Totally,
harder.
'cause
But
it's
still, that's a pretty
unproven.
low barrier. If you were saying, I only convert after 10, well, then you really have a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. Then it's like, okay, they have to spend 30 minutes in the app to get there. It's like, no, you have to spend 2 minutes in order to see that.
And I suppose you have some, just to shift topic a little bit towards the end here, you do have some safety concern stuff. Do the models themselves help with that, or APIs in some level? I mean, what if somebody said, like, I don't know, make a website for my junior year math teacher's legs or something, like something a little risque or something. Do you have to step in there? Or are you like, I don't know, do whatever you want?
Oh, absolutely you do. It's the issue with models these days is they are, non-deterministic a lot of times, and people will come in and try that stuff. Luckily, this came from experience here. So I was the person that was actually running Figma's first pipeline for safety when they were first diving into AI tools. So
Figma's got to be
I had
really
a strong background on that, and the amount of things that people tried was just absolutely wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still see that.
Can you get into that just a little bit? Like what do you? Is it like a prompt that prompts for safety, or does it go
It's very
deeper than that?
KGB-esque in a weird way. It's like, how the KGB model is like, everybody is watching everybody type of thing. In the same way, you'll use models to watch the other models. And so whenever you type in a prompt or whatever, I'm doing like a prompt expansion. But there is a review step of that prompt to see, hey, from a safety standpoint, is this something that is restricted? Obviously, anything that is like underage, anything that is like, a little risque. If it's like a little risque, sure, fine, go wild. I don't want to restrict people from using the platform. I want to make sure the platform is legal. And those are 2 different separations of review.
Yeah, that's cool. Wow, the model watches the model. How interesting. Okay, so yeah, that's cool. And then this will probably interest some people. Some people will be like, oh, diffusion design, you say, huh? Like I remember Stable Diffusion, wasn't that like the free one? Maybe I'll just do it myself with that or whatever, But that would be okay. At least you're getting interest in people using this kind of alternative path of finding it. Maybe that's a rising tides thing.
Go cook it yourself. Like I feel like right now in this world, we're all so collaborative because of how things move. Or how fast things move, rather. Whenever anybody does something, I think that you see a lot of, not necessarily copycats, it's just like, oh, that technique works. AI is such a new and emergent technology that, please, like if you want to build a diffusion-based UI tool, please go do it. Like I would love to have competition in the field just to have somebody to riff with on this. I think it'd be rad. Like you saw, was it Grokbot just launched, and then like Hermes launched like a very similar version of that. I think that was just like, sweet, that pattern works. Let's try it and let's implement more. You see all these editors and they've all converged on a design because it's what works. And I think we're still in the early phase of trying to figure out what works with AI because of how fast it's moving. So yeah, please go do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I like that, you have this like founder challenge of getting like, what I want to show is people like 10 designs. Because, man, I think you can digest a thumbnail pretty quickly and be like, that's the direction I want to go. But you got to balance it with like whatever, they're like 13 cents each or something, right? And I want to like be giving people the most value as they can without, I don't know, being too restrictive or whatever. That's really complicated stuff. And that's where we're at.
And math at it. I mean, for me, like my goal was, can you get an entire website design done for $5? Because I think if you have like a full web design done, then it's very much like the Fiverr model, where it was just like, hey, we'll get you a web design in $5, and that felt like great value. In the same way, I feel like you have these platforms, and yeah, you're paying token cost, but what you're getting out of them hopefully is so worth it.
Right. It's so interesting that that's where I don't think that story is over, and I think maybe we're a little over measured as a people's. Like, I'm really sick of thinking about every damn thing I have is limiting me in some way, and it has to be for like financial viability and stuff. I don't think that's ever going to go away, but like, I don't know. That's a bet I have. I haven't, put any money behind it or anything yet, but I do think we're kind of overly measured. And I wish there was more tools that were like, just use the thing. We'll figure it out. Economies of scale, come on.
Right. Go play.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more play involved.
Yeah. This seems like Diff UI seems like a highly playable app. So everybody go check it out, I guess. That's the half an hour we have this week. Thanks so much, Jacob, for being on the show, and best of luck with this journey. It seems like a very, very smart idea from a talented designer. So,
Chris, I appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Yes. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Catch you.